Welcome to this episode of the ASCOR Explainer series. My name is Giorgia Monsignori and I'm an analyst at the Transition Pathway Initiative Centre based at the London School of Economics. In today's episode, I'll walk you through sectoral transitions in the ASCOR framework. The ASCOR framework is built on 3 pillars that assess a different aspect of a country's climate performance. Each pillar covers relevant areas in line with its theme. So sectoral transitions sits just under the second pillar on climate policies. If you're interested in further information on any of these areas, please take a look at the ASCOR framework. The methodology note is linked just below the table on the slide. In this video, we'll start with an introduction to sectoral transitions. Then we'll look at how ASCOR specifically assesses sectoral transitions. And finally, we'll see some results and emerging good practices from the 2024 assessment results. As we explore why sectoral transitions are essential to the broader transition, it's important to understand the unique role that each sector plays and how this coordinated action can really accelerate progress. Firstly, by setting sectoral targets in NDCs, governments are offering clear, credible guidance to investors and companies. These targets are really bringing economy-wide goals down to these actionable plans within each sector. Another major area is energy efficiency. So laws and targets here are not only among the most cost-effective ways to cut emissions, but they're also reducing energy bills and boosting energy security. So a win-win. At the corporate level, mandatory related climate disclosure really supports this by improving transparency and accountability. It's also helping businesses align their practices with the national climate goals. If we look specifically at the electricity sector, the IEA highlights a clear path that net zero should be reached in the electricity sector by 2035 in advanced economies, by 2040 in China, and 2045 in the rest of the world. And then finally, we can't ignore land. Emissions from land use change, and forestry also need to decline. And so the Montreal Biodiversity Framework reinforces this by calling for 30% of land to be protected by 2030. Together, these examples are showing us that sector-specific strategies are not just helpful, but they are critical to a just and effective transition. Now we'll look at specifically how ASCOR is assessing sectoral transitions. This is our first indicator, and we look for whether a country has a multi-sector climate strategy. So we look first at sectoral coverage, so we check for the electricity sector, transport sector, industry sector, LULUCF, agriculture, forestry, and then any fifth sector with a significant emissions contribution to the country's profile. Each sector we require to have a quantified emission reduction target or projection for the sector, plus at least one specified policy, initiative, or regulation which contributes to the emission reduction of that sector. Our second indicator assesses whether that country has a law and target on energy efficiency. This is complemented with the country's energy intensity of primary energy. We assess for whether the country has established mandatory climate-related disclosure, and then we also look for whether the country has set a net zero electricity target, which is aligned with the 1.5 IEA scenario. So this will also follow differentiated timelines according to the country. This is complemented with the percentage of the country's electricity generation from low carbon sources. And finally, we assess whether a country has increased its protected area as a percentage of total land area over the last 5 years. This is also complemented with the metric on what the amount of protected areas in the country as a percentage of total land area is. So as you've seen in from our indicators, there's really a range of information being collected here. So we're also looking at different sectoral strategies, regulations, and actions to really assess the scope of implementation of the transition. To align with the principles of common but differentiated responsibilities, we exempt low-income countries on all the indicators and middle-income countries on certain indicators. For sources here, we're relying on the legislative and executive documents, UNFCCC submissions, national energy and climate plans, and then for the quantitative metrics, we use the World Bank, the IEA, and the Integrated Biodiversity Assessment Tool. So here on the slide, you can see our 2024 assessment results. On the left, the indicators, and on the right, the results. The best performing indicator here is that of increased protected areas as a percentage of total land area. And this is a low bar because we are not asking for the 30% Kunming threshold. Rather, on the other hand, the lowest performing area is that of setting a net zero electricity target aligned with the IEA 1.5 scenario, and we are seeing here only 19% of countries meeting this. So here is an example of how to interpret our indicator and metrics together. On this slide, you see the progress towards meeting net zero electricity targets. And you'll see the bars that show you the current share of low carbon sources versus the increase needed in the electricity generation. So we have 2030 targets with these countries setting these 2030 targets. And you'll see that the leader here is Costa Rica, who only needs a 5% increase to meet their 2030 target. Similarly, we have 2035 targets with these countries setting such targets. And at the top, you see as well Finland with only 5% increase needed to meet their 2035 target. So that wraps up our overview of sectoral transitions. If you'd like to learn more about ASCOR or explore other episodes of ASCOR's Explainer series, please visit our website. Thank you for watching.